Well, good morning, our beloveds. We're going to try to channel from the great outdoors today. This morning, our another is out front sun gazing and honestly just basking in the sun, much like a seed that wishes to be sprouted. It requires that activation from the sun's energy. And when she sun gazes, she feels better. So first of all, we would inspire you all just to go sit out and sit in the sun, even if you have your eyes closed. The sun's rays will go through your eyelids and will still stimulate the pineal gland via the optic sensory devices. Kati is not in this world, and so we cannot tap into her vast library of medical terminology. Just know that if you sit outdoors facing the sun with your eyes closed and feeling the sun's rays coming through your closed eyelids, that it is still performing a benefit for your pineal gland, for your dopamine production, for your serotonin levels. It helps to regulate your body, and doing it first thing in the morning is the best because it resets your circadian rhythm. But we digress, as that is not what we wish to speak about today. You're beginning to see how things are shifting. It's a return to normal, but it's not. The economy has shifted. Lots of small businesses have shuttered their doors, their locations, and the larger online places such as Amazon and Walmart, have grown. Now, why is that? Because during the pandemic, it became obvious that you could just shop without shopping and buy without leaving your home. And many of you, through necessity as well as desire, opted for that path. And so now what does this mean as you go back to a booming economy? How will you support the small businesses who are your lifeline versus the big megaliths, which really destroy all competition with pricing and shipping and whatever the other means are, because they don't have the responsibility, as you know, to pay the same level of taxes. They receive benefits, they receive breaks, they have the best accountants to help them to create the most advantageous tax structure. Little mom and pop shops don't have that. So yeah, you will pay more. You will sometimes receive less service, meaning the people are not well trained these days as they're selling you the product, because they're not necessarily well educated in the public school systems that your money supports. Now, why is that? Is it because public schooling is bad? No, it's wonderful. It's ideal. This is something that should be on the backs of all of the taxpayers, because it is not a for-profit institution. Same with libraries, fire stations, emergency rooms. There are certain extensions of the government that make sense, because you want to create an educated and motivated workforce who will create an economic stability. Those are for those of you who believe in the economy. And for those of you who believe in the more liberal way of perceiving things, you want an educated workforce because they have skills. They cannot be manipulated so much by large corporations or small businesses, because they have options, because they have been educated. Educated people, while you may say they're more liberal, no, they're actually just critical thinkers. Critical thinking means that you look at different perspectives instead of a small-minded viewpoint. And for those of you who did become more liberal as you went to college, well, while your family may say that it is a burden on society because you've been brainwashed, maybe it's that you've stepped out of their programming, the community's programming, and you see things through your own eyes. Now, granted, the programming that you received was from the university, but much of it is actually designed for critical thinking. So the conclusions that you draw may possibly be your own versus having a thought or a concept literally beaten into your head, because that is what is right within your childhood community. We encourage you all to travel. We encourage you all to become friends with those who are on the other side of the political divide, whichever side you're on, and really get to know those people and to understand why their belief systems are as they are. It's not because they're small-minded on either side. It is because they have a belief system that supports where they're at now. If you grow up in a small town that is supported by agricultural benefits that are supported more so by the Republicans, well, then don't be surprised if those individuals grow up to be more fiscally conservative as it relates to individuals and more liberal as it relates to corporations, because you're going to support that which supports you. And they're not able to really see the piece of the government subsidies for the individuals because their particular party badmouths that. And so they, again, believe it, hook, line, and sinker, without thinking about the fact that their health care is actually part of that because they have been entrained by a belief system. But when people go to college or move abroad or live amongst more open-minded individuals, they are forced either to retreat and hold their individual perspective, fighting to the death, or they say, well, let me give this a try. Let me give this thought a whirl and see if maybe there might be something to it. And then they become more open-minded, more critically thinking. And this is what this world is lacking, sadly, is the ability to critically think through what the correct solution is rather than just memorizing stuff. So the question you all have today is, well, what is this message on today? And we will share it as on critical thinking. So we shared through our another about the Sophie moment that you all find yourselves in. And you can't even feel it or see it yet, but just trust us. The universe is going to squeeze you and it's going to force you to choose one side or the other. And the question is, right, are you going to believe the programming that has entrained your brain, or are you going to step outside of it, look at all of the factors that come into play, and use your own noggin to conclude whatever you conclude, which may be the original programming, but you now come to that conclusion on your own because you processed the issue, you questioned what it is that's going on, and you choose one side or the other. The Russians are choosing their side and the Ukrainians are choosing their side. And then there are independent soldiers who are choosing to side whichever faction they believe in, right? Because that's something that they support. And they critically come to that conclusion and are willing to put their own lives at risk in harm's way because they believe in it. And it doesn't even matter which side they support. It is that they, independent of others, choose to put their own lives at risk. For those nurses who chose to work in the medical field environment and yet chose not to be vaccinated, well, they chose to continue to desire to serve others while still recognizing that there was a risk on their own because they didn't believe in the science yet. That is what they chose, even though they were still willing to go to work and save your lives. And yet you bandage them up as crackpots and throw them out, which is fine. The choices you have individually and collectively made will reverberate in a particular way. There is karma. There is dharma. There is simply the concept of what you put out into the universe will come back. So if you believe that certain things must be a certain way in order for the world to function versus saying, I'm going to take my finger off this process and allow it to work out on its own. I'm just going to set my intentions and trust that the universe will move it in alignment with my intentions and the intentions of others. But I'm going to trust that we're going to go where we need to go. That's a very, very different perspective than I got to do it my way because I know I'm right. When you surrender and trust that there might be a different way that can teach you something, that you've never trusted in because you know right from wrong. But when you surrender, that's when you open the doors and the path to the mystery of the unknown and to learning what it feels like and looks like to trust outside of you, but really within you. You give up the need to try to control and manipulate the world around you, and you just simply say, I'm going to be a kind and loving person, and I'm going to trust that I'm going to attract what is meant to come to me, and the rest I'm going to let it go. I'm not going to worry about tomorrow. I'm not going to fuss or agitate over yesterday, because what's the point? It gets me nowhere and just makes me not feel well. So I'm just going to live simply right now amidst all of this chaos, the war energy, the confusion about where we're going. And I'm just going to enjoy life, and I'm going to make the most out of my life. And only those things that I really truly believe in, I will only allow those to energize me, and the rest of it, I'm just not going to give a flying fuck. It's just going to have to be what it is, and we're all going to have to manage. We've gotten to this point and time in history without managing to annihilate all of us, and somehow the pendulum tends to swing back and forth. So I know we're going to make it. I just don't know what it's going to look like, and I'm just going to do my part with what makes me feel good, helpful, and useful. And it's the critical thinking that allows you to get to that point of, what do I really want to support versus what have I been programmed to believe in? Abortion is not the only issue upon which you can vote. There are many others. Abortion may be an important aspect of life to you, but isn't the environment and isn't the health and well-being of babies after they have been born, and isn't education, and isn't creating just a warm space within your community where people feel safe to speak instead of being bludgeoned to death because they dare to say something that others don't like? Why do you choose only abortion? Aren't there other topics that might be of interest, right? Or the border? Become more multidimensional. Find maybe 10 things that are important to you. And this time, instead of finding things that are only on your side of the political divide, look at things that are on the other side. Make an intentional goal of finding things on the other side of the political divide that you can support. So if you're liberal, say, you know what? I want to look at being fiscally conservative in certain ways, because we're just pissing money away without actually getting any results that are meaningful. So maybe we need to go back to the drawing board and figure out a better way to fix this. It doesn't mean that the underlying issue is not worthy of financial support, but I think we're going to have to go back to the drawing boards. You guys have created a narcissistic environment around the world, but specifically within the U.S. You validate that beating somebody else over the head because you're stronger and mightier is a good thing. And look where that's gotten you. Not in a good place, is it now? When you all had small businesses, more community interaction, more connection with your neighbors, you actually cared a lot more about one another, right? And now that you're in the mindset of bigger is better, and let's outsource and let's grow, and you have lost the heartbeat of connection to others. So why don't you simplify? Instead, support small businesses, innovative design, create a whole new way of living, of commuting, of growing your food, of being. Think small, think grassroots, and begin to build something that works for you and your community based on love, intention, and your actual participation. Signing a move on a petition is not going to change the world as much as you think it will. It is you sitting with your neighbor when your neighbor is struggling. That's what matters. Become a human being again instead of a human doing. A human being just sits. Doesn't need to solve anything. You just sit and love one another. That's what we encourage you to do, but with critical thinking. Find your inner heartbeat, your inner purpose, your inner love, and just be that. Love yourself and love your neighbor and don't be a dick. And so it is. Namaste.